Hello and welcome. Has this ever happened to you? You're living your life in a neoliberal, late-stage capitalist hellscape and a small vocal minority overtakes the state and runs a coup d'etat to silence opposition and reinforce propaganda idealizing the American exceptionalism notion so that people are bound to their own individuality rather than uniting as an actual community? Well, you're not alone. Even though under capitalism we're all taught that because of our exceptionalism, it's by our bootstraps that we are capable of picking ourselves up and thriving in the world, that is merely a justification for the bourgeois class to further divide the proletariat, because if they can keep us fighting for the crumbs at the bottom of the barrel, they are able to maintain their sort of position in society. So it is with the utmost importance that when the boot comes down on us, the proletariat, we do not raise our tongues to the sky as the Red Scare propaganda that the American public education system put forth in an effort to obfuscate communist ideals and silence dissent, while at the same time advocating free speech. Instead, we band together and tell that boot to go fuck itself. That's what I would argue. But it's hard because even among so many groups, there is such division. I recently joined a socialist organization. I'm a communist, by the way. I don't know what socialism is. It sounds like the capitalist version of communism, and capitalism has a great way of making exceptions for the cruelty of a capitalist system that is inherent to its construction. In the instance of socialism, the issue is a lot of people will sort of identify themselves as knowing the right path forward and then not have any meaningful actions they can take in their life to apply those ideals. So under late-stage capitalism, socialism becomes effectively just a little mental place we can all escape to. Meanwhile, communism discusses how we ought to be building as a community. Now, again, I do want to make it clear, the two are pretty much the same. You can get into the nuance of theory and the differences, but the baseline idea is that we can fight on ideological means among each other to further sort of the goal of society as a whole, rather than attacking the individuals who come up with those ideas. It's important under communism for us all to be educated so we can engage with these conversations, but the first step to implementing communism is, I guess, getting rid of the capitalist swine that currently rule the world. Now, the bourgeoisie are the one in power. That would be like your Trumps, your Musks, your Zuckerbergs, your Rothschilds, whatever, the 1%, you know, the rich, the ones we plan to eat, and we will share their wealth among us. They have a vested interest in the current system, and under the current coup d'etat, America's fallen. Freedom and democracy has always been a lie, but it's never been more apparent than it is now. And the reason I say that is because how do we have a leadership that directly attacks entire populations of people, and at the same time we don't recognize that the system itself is violent? Instead, we try and rationalize and justify their actions, and we see it every day on like the mainstream news and stuff, where they try and go, oh, well, you know, some people believe that trans women shouldn't be able to participate in women's sports. And no one talks about the inherent advantage that exists in sports, because sports are intended to be unfair. If they weren't unfair, no one would ever win. But this idea of winning and losing being the only determinant of the value of a sport loses the fun of the game. It's not through incorporation that conservatism wants to like address the differences that may exist between trans women and women. Instead, they'd rather exclude trans women. And that's the key difference between capitalism and communism, is capitalism can make no room for accommodating those who are not under their definition. And when I say they, their, what I'm referring to is the wider ideological view of society as a whole, rather than from my own perspective, which is the only thing I can speak from. So I hope you'll grant me that grace. I'm not building, oh, these people are after me. We literally see the attacks on trans people almost on a daily basis. It gets pumped through mainstream news. And in an attention economy, that's exactly what the news wants, is it wants you to live in fear so that you're forced to watch more, so that you might be able to develop an idea of how to fix it. But at the end of the day, even after you discover that idea, you don't have the means to correct it because capitalism has deprived us as individuals from the strength that we have when we work together as a team. We lose those abilities to communicate and network, and the internet has sort of driven a wedge between individuals within the world in such a way that right now it's more critical than ever to go out, make friends, and try and find people who don't necessarily believe everything the same as you, but people who you can engage in conversation about the ideas of how we should move forward. Because in our day-to-day lives, oftentimes, I'm a white person. I've been behind closed doors with other white people and heard some of the most vitriolic, just racist stuff. And then the most surprising thing isn't that the racist person says racist things. The most surprising thing is the person who you don't think is racist will let those racist things be said without standing up for those who are being sort of oppressed in that ideological space. If you make a commentary on an entire population without knowing that whole population, which again is an impossibility, you can't have a full understanding of an entire population that you're not a member of that community or anything along those lines. So their perspective is unique, and that's the importance of diversity and including that in our ideological debates. But capitalism makes no room for it. So instead, people will go out and present front-facing sort of ideas and then behind closed doors say some of the most vile stuff. And then we get into situations where, because the news is rationalizing the vile, we've reached an age of extremism to the point where we've become dulled to it. We are 6 months into the most fascist authoritarian regime this country's ever seen. And the 6 months before the election, Trump decided to call Kamala Harris, taking over the lead in the presidential race on the Democrat side as a coup d'etat because he was worried that his chances might be impaired. And it's really interesting that, again, there's nothing we can do about it as individuals, but to go to a group of people who believe the same things as you and who are struggling in the same ways as you in the same society, that's the importance, is finding that community. And a lot of people talk about, we gotta organize this, we gotta organize that. The thing is, we all need to make it throughout our days, and we need to find ways to incorporate communist ideals into our lives without overthrowing capitalism through one swift effort. It's not in a day that we're going to fix this nation, but it can be fixed. That's the one thing we should find solace in, is that we are not done yet. And again, things in more socialist ideals that I kind of disagree with is the idea of, say, defund the police. And the only reason I'm bringing this up isn't to say that police brutality is a bad approach, but it's because at the end of the day, there are people who are police officers, and while, oh, I'm just doing my job, that's not an excuse for being an oppressive piece of shit. But there has to be a way to convince the people who are in those positions of authority and power that they should be on our side rather than outright attacks against people that promote sort of an impulsive, retaliation or vitriol back. Because again, if someone came to me and was like, hey, Chloe, I'm gonna get you fired, big Navy, I'd be pretty upset about that. And that's actually part of what led me to where I am now ideologically. But when we do that to cops, we don't necessarily understand that, hey, if we were on the same side as cops and we all understood that the system is authoritarian and that we can rise above all this stuff by making human connections, that's where we can have a future that maybe we don't change every law, but we can make everyone's life better. And honestly, the fact that capitalism is such a self-serving ideology is what throws me off so much. Because a comrade of mine from the socialist organization recommended I read Mao's Fight Liberalism. And in there are 11 sort of tenets of what liberalism within the communist revolution looked like, so that each communist is well equipped with, hey, if someone's doing one of these things, we can call them on it and say, hey, Mao, he says we shouldn't be sort of presenting ourselves these ways. We should be focused much more on the ideological sort of contention we hold as we try and figure out the best way forward, or the best way to move our resources in a way that benefits the most people. And what sort of captured me about it was that symbol of 11 items. Because in the military, there were the 11 general orders of a century, which are, oh, we gotta take charge of our post and we're responsible. And it's this empowering set of codes that we can all abide by that then sort of like makes us affirmed in our beliefs to an extent that it's wild how the Red Scare propaganda just severed Mao and his ideas while at the same time co-opting them and then distorting them to apply it towards a capitalist military-industrial complex and its benefit rather than the good of the whole. And the reason I bring that up is because another notion in the military was shipmate, self. You should put your team first, and then you put your friends first, and then you put yourself. The ordering of events is one that under capitalism incentivizes us to burn out, to go harder than we know to do with, and not pay regard for ourselves because we're doing it for something good. And in the writings of Mao, he kind of talks about something similar in how being a good communist is about being a good comrade. And if you're a good comrade, it comes naturally. I just wanted to share because, again, what is going on in the world? It doesn't matter what people say. The rules just get made up by the people in power, and no one in these positions without power are capable of recognizing their own strength. We have unmarked federal agents lifting people off the streets, and we have a Second Amendment, and I'm gonna let you know, no matter how much money they pour into ICE, we the people will always outnumber them. So I don't understand where the issue is outside of our fear of the system, and that fear should be made very clear to us, because that is not how society is supposed to operate. Capitalism thrives on making us fear, whereas communism, we can work towards a good. Anyway, I just wanted to share that because, again, I suggested, hey, let's play Minecraft in my socialist Discord, and everyone was like, we're boycotting Microsoft, and it really threw me for a loop. Because I was like, why is Microsoft, a boycott against Minecraft, gonna stop Microsoft from providing Azure cloud services to the IDF in their ongoing genocide against the Palestinian people? And now, of course, there isn't a good answer for that. We live in a capitalist world. There has to be a way to navigate this while doing good, and at the same time, without impairing our abilities to reach beyond our own virtue. And I think a lot of what socialism has devolved into is theory without practice, because the practice gets drained out of us through the energy we spend on things like the news or being in this constant state of fear of a system that is designed to oppress, and then we don't see that it oppresses because we believe that it's oppressing those other than us right up until it starts to affect us. And that's the part I want to make very clear, is that it is not normal to be afraid for your livelihood. This administration has normalized it for a lot of populations, and again, by cutting everyone's jobs within a week of starting, you already have severed people from their livelihood in the same way that the arguments against defunding the police would sever those officers from their livelihood. So it's not as though the conservatives have an actual solution that benefits the masses. It's weird, but we let it happen because, what, we don't know better? We do know better. but we choose not to do anything about it, and that's the part that confuses me. I would encourage you, take a moment and just reflect, because I'm not asking for you to make a drastic change to your life. I'm asking you to truly look at the world, and when you think to yourself, oh, should the rich people be allowed to oppress? If you were a rich person, would you oppress? And if the answer is no, I have some bad news. You're never going to be a rich person, so strike the thought from your mind and start being a communist. Anyway, thanks for joining me. This has just been a little bit of an angry rant because I'm worked up and I don't know what to do, but I'm getting out there and trying to meet people and trying to learn and better myself in the ways that I see as within my control. And I think it's important to kind of, I guess, share these steps with you, because I don't know what to do. And at the end of the day, like, if the laws change in a way that oppress me, my best bet is to surround myself with good people who love me. That way, when the law comes down, I can go, hey, there's a big boot coming. I couldn't do that when I was in the Navy. I was kind of working on my own in a lot of ways. And this time around, I think the indoctrination from the military into those ideas that are essentially communist without the name communism have really made me just think that it is possible for us to actually band together and make a difference. We don't have to sit and talk about each other as if we aren't people. We can accept that we're all people, because all we gotta do is be kind to others, be kind to ourselves, and avoid doing nothing. And if we can manage that, and we make our rent and pay our bills, and we can at least sustain ourselves through late-stage capitalism long enough to actually make a difference, so long as we begin networking now before the fall of, the internet or infrastructure, or, there's gonna be a few road bumps, I'm sure, in the course of revolution. But now is the time we must accept that revolution is upon us, because if we continue to live in complacency, we got 3.5 more years of hardcore, heavy-hitting oppression, and after that, the people who grow up in this age are going to be more and more aware of how violent the state has become, and the state is going to do all it can to try and prevent the loss of power after it's been built up. That's why I said they're building the bulwark. So our job is to prepare ourselves for the collapse, because it's already upon us, but no one wants to recognize it because we see this system as one that benefits us or that we can potentially benefit from. And the reality is, we will never truly outlive the system. The capitalist swine is all we have to outlive, and we can do that by affirming our own communism. Anyway, thank you for joining me. I'm Sticky Basket, and I love you. See you in the next one.